How best do you remember Shaban Bantariza?
Shaban was a forthright person, very blunt and very firm in his convictions. Shaban and I go way back to 1985 when we enlisted together to join the NRA. He was slightly older, but nevertheless we found a bond as people who joined together, who were inducted through basic training together, who later met at cadet school, were in the same company. So we had a lot of interaction in our formative stages as officers in the NRA, later UPDF. So we empathize with the family, immediate, and also the larger family of the UPDF, where he served diligently before he retired. We empathize with the media fraternity, where he had his last post as deputy at Media Center, and where he too served diligently, once again flying our flag as UPDF beyond the confines of the UPDF in the media glare, where he did well. We remember him as being deep ideologically, formed. He had that ideological clarity and depth. And little wonder that he rose to all these responsibilities, including leading our main leadership school, Ideological leadership school at Chankwanzi, before he left the army. So we pray that the Lord gives him deserving reception and eternal peace in his afterlife. Because that, but what he did, as once when he lived, is immortalized by us. It will be rekindled. The purpose for which he lived is still here with us, and the only way to honor him is to preserve what he lived for, what he believed in, as an officer of the military, as a human being, and as a colleague.
I must say that I've lost a great mentor. Not only I, but we have lost a very great mentor. Those are talking about those in the PR fraternity. You will interview the other PROs and they will tell you almost the same story, because he picked us individually and he first mentored us, because he said, yes, like say you've studied this and this, that may not be enough. What is more important now is to know the military angle of it. How do you do it in a military way? Because a spokesperson in the military is different from a spokesperson in all other institutions. So he made us the spokesperson of the army, and I stayed with him for 4 months. After 4 months, he deployed me as the spokesperson for general headquarters based in Bombo, right, still sitting nearby him, as he kept on mentoring me. And thereafter transferred me to Masindi. After 3 weeks, returned me back again. I think I didn't do well, he returned me back again, gave me another mentoring for another some four weeks like so, sent me to Kakiri, and thereafter I went to Karamoja, where as a head of department he deployed me, and I worked there for so many years before I went to Somalia, came back as a deputy defense spokesperson. I went for other military courses, senior command course in the United States, master's degree in military science, came back, and now in land forces, all thanks to his contribution. More especially that my initial training was not journalism, so I needed this more. My initial training was not journalism. I studied criminology and so on, social sciences, but he made me a journalist, and through that he was able to assist us in, like say, go for this other course, organize so many courses that made us what we are to them, especially us who were not initially journalists. It's him who identified me from the field where I was serving, and he thought I could be able to serve under public information. And indeed, I was deployed under his command. And upon the first deployment, he actually took me to stay in his home. And I stayed in his home for 4 good months, where we'd live together in the morning, we go to work, come back in the evening, stay with him, tell me how things are supposed to be done. And it's like he was telling me, this is how a PRO is supposed to live. And he told me, in order for you to be a good PRO, it's not about you simply going to the office. It goes beyond up to home level. And that's why he said, I'm going to take you along with me. Actually, I stayed with him for 4 good months and was taking care of all my requirements as I stayed with him, as he taught me. He taught me what to do, how a spokesperson in the military is supposed to conduct himself, what he's supposed to do. We started in the morning with the newspapers, very early in the morning, and would read newspapers together. Thereafter, he would teach me how to make summaries for, like, say, for the boss, as a communication officer, how you can summarize some of these news items, getting the key, what's necessary, and so on, what's military related. Like for the army commander, by then we had the army commander, and later on the chief of defense forces. And actually I used to do that every day. Along the way, he's answering telephone calls, and after the telephone calls is like saying, did you hear? The question was like this, and I answered in this way. So it was very great mentoring, not just mentoring by, say, meeting in office, watching him on TV, but physical mentoring. So I can't say this was a great man in my career, in my personal career, but also it was not only me, he did this to so many other of our people that worked under him. So he's a great leader.
It's unfortunate that the Rt Col Shaban Bantariza has not got a chance to read my book, because by the time it got finished, he wasn't in office, so I was not able to meet him. But I have written about him, and you'll permit me to read what I wrote about him, although what I know about him is much bigger. And I said, as a young man, he is one of the inspiration people that have encouraged me to do what I have done. That as a young man, I used to marvel at the way Col Shaban Bantariza brilliantly handled media. To me, he was a classic debater and smart at diffusing challenging questions from the journalists. In one of his interviews, he stated, if you can't go to London, you can make London come to you. On top of his oratory skills, he always kept a sense of humor in his presentation and debates. By all means, when I was deployed in the PR office, I had to make an effort to be at least close to his legacy. The burning zeal is one to make UPS a brand, and then at least I liken it the way he did for UPDF. Notably, he was always on uniform. The military attire kept him polished and kempt. This is one of the things I emulated from him. I also adopted reliance on legal protection in communicating to avoid contradictions and backlash from unhappy individuals and the public. It's from such that I learned to read the Constitution, Prisons Act, Magistrates Act, and others. And these have made me what I am, thanks to his inspirational touch on me.
Especially coming from a disciplined force, he has been a very obedient, subordinate, even where you may not disagree. But also Shaban was a forthright person, that there is nothing he would fear to tell you in the forum that should be told. So we have had an excellent working relationship with him since 2015, when he joined the Uganda Media Center.
Anything to talk about the cause of his death?
Well, I have said this before to other media houses, that Shaban, on He has been doing work around the country. On Monday, Tuesday, he started complaining about cough, fatigue, but he had been having pre-existing condition, particularly diabetes and low blood pressure. So on Wednesday, he got admitted to the UPDF military hospital here in Mbuya. When they couldn't manage, they escalated. They sent him to Victoria and then to Nakasero, eventually to Mulago on Sunday, where he was tested and found to have contracted COVID-19.